102.5 The Block, Charlotte's home for hip hop and R&B. This is your favorite DJ, DJ Carolina X. My special co-host with me today by the name of Sylvia Darlene. How you doing, Sylvia?
Hey, everybody, how are you?
Doing good, doing good. Hey, just to let everybody know, we are huge wrestling fans. At the core of our heart, we are huge WWE fans, and it's an honor to have our special guest with us today, here to promote Raw coming to Charlotte, North Carolina at the Spectrum Center Monday, February 17th. Hey, we got the Uzi one in the building, former Intercontinental Champion, Mr. Sami Zayn. How you doing today, Mr. Sami?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Doing good, doing good. Yeah, Raw is coming to Charlotte, man. How you feeling? How's everything? How's life treating you?
You know what? I can't complain. It could definitely be a lot worse. And I am excited to be coming back to Charlotte. I was actually just thinking about Charlotte, weirdly enough, this morning, before I even thought about this interview, because I was going to head up to North Carolina, and I just thought, hey, you know what? Charlotte's a nice city, and I really enjoy being there. And I feel like it's been a minute since I've been there, and it
Hmm.
feels like we through there often enough to where
Right.
after a couple months pass, I start thinking we haven't been to Charlotte in a minute. So yeah, I'm always excited to come back. That city's really grown on me, actually.
Yes, so since you're coming to Charlotte in February of next year and with the debut of Netflix, I do want to know what can we expect from you at that show?
It's really hard to ask what I'm doing personally. Uh, oh, because in WWE, things, as you know, if you've been watching, sometimes things change minute to minute. Somebody gets hurt, it changes everything. A storyline catches fire, it changes everything. So it's very hard to say where I'll be on the timeline come February. But as you mentioned, we're debuting on Netflix in just a couple of weeks, January 6th, in fact. So um, even that throws a big monkey wrench or a big curveball. I don't know how it'll change the game, but you have to think it'll change the game. For the
Right.
first time over 30 years, Raw all of a sudden is not on broadcast television, it's on Netflix. And, you know, it's just the way of the world. People have moved further and further away from cable and more to these streaming services. So I think it's going to either open a lot of new eyes or reopen a lot of eyes for people that just haven't really been watching and then all of a sudden turn on Netflix and there we are. So I'm really curious to see once we debut on Netflix January 6th, what it'll be like by the time we roll into Charlotte in February.
Absolutely. And that leads me
Yeah.
into my next question. It'll be the first time that, Raw will be broadcasted in Charlotte on Netflix. So
Right.
when you first heard about, the big move to Netflix, how did that feel for you? Like, did excitement come over you? Like, I know you stated that, things may, change when it comes down to that big move. But when you first heard about it, how did that, reflect on you?
I had mixed feelings because part of me was like, whoa, this is, we're here. This is really the future. Everybody's got Netflix nowadays, it seems like, and but there was a part of me that was like, oh my God, Raw is not going to be on television.
For the
Like,
first time in like 30 years, 40 years?
yeah,
Yeah.
like television. Look, I'm a product of the 80s and 90s. I was a 90s kid. So it's like to me, I know the world is changing fast. And for us born in that generation, it just seems like exponential growth. Like you start getting used to one piece of technology and the next one's already kind of there, right? Um, so it is hard for me to imagine a world where we're getting new fans without being on television because that was like
Right.
that's how fans find you. They watch you on TV and now they're fans. But
Exactly.
yeah, again, this is Netflix is TV. It's just like a new way of getting television, and it's still there was that internal and automatic sort of like what, but it's not like it used to be. So there was a
Right.
little that kind of initially, but then when I started seeing the numbers of how many homes have actually switched from cable to Netflix and how many homes are carry Netflix and not just in America but all around the world, I was like, oh, this might actually be huge,
It makes
like
sense.
really,
Yeah.
really, yeah, globally. So I'm as curious as anyone to see how it shakes out. But yeah, just interesting times that we're living through, not just with WWE, but just globally. It's an interesting ride to be a part of.
Yes, so for those who don't know, how long have you been in the wrestling business, and was this your original passion of yours?
Yeah, so I've been in the game crazy enough. God, 22, 25 will make it. So I'm going on 23 years. Yeah, that's crazy.
That
That's
is crazy.
for the time. The guy still feel like a youngish man, but I also started very young. Um, and the older you get, and this doesn't matter if you're in the wrestling game or any game or just the game of life, like the older you get, um, it starts to feel like you've lived many lives within that one life. So there was like my childhood, and then as soon as I was kind of graduating high school, I trained to become a wrestler, and there was that journey which felt like forever. That
Right.
first years before I signed with WWE, and now it's crazy to think that I've been in WWE almost 12 years. It just goes fast. But yeah, for sure, it was a passion of mine from childhood. It was something I wanted to do as a kid. But when you're a kid, at least for me, I don't know about other people because I have heard some other WWE superstars say like, I knew this is what I wanted to do as a job or whatever. I
Right.
wanted this to be a career. I had no sense as a child that money was involved. You know,
Right.
Right. Yeah.
a job, and this is how people put food on their table or buy houses. That it just didn't, I didn't look at the world that way as a child, but it was just something really cool, and I wanted to do it. The same way I thought skateboarding was super cool, and I wanted to do it, so I picked up a skateboard. Um, and then I just really liked wrestling, so I wanted to learn how to do it. And then, I guess I was a fan that took it too far, I suppose,
I
and
did.
didn't stop. And
Absolutely.
at each step, it just went a little further and a little further, and well, here we are today.
And that's a testament to your fact, man. When it comes down to you as a wrestler, as a performer, we enjoy watching you every Monday. And when you're on SmackDown, we enjoy watching you as well because you bring so much excitement. You bring so much intelligence when it comes down to your promos as well. Speaking of your childhood, most of my childhood influences, the Stone Colds, the Rocks in the world. Going back to the Golden Era, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was one of my influences.
Uh,
Sylvia's influence was Bret Hart. She loves Bret Hart to the day that she dies. She would die on that hill for Bret Hart. So, as far as influences, do you have any influences that influence you to, become a wrestler or any wrestler that you watched growing up?
so yeah, for sure, and those evolved over time. I think as a kid, like you talk about the golden sort of boom of wrestling in the '80s. I grew up around then, so Hulk Hogan was my first hero as a kid.
Mm,
I was just captivated, I think, by the spectacle of it all. Like the music and the sweat and the blood and the victory and the overcoming, and it was just captivating as a 5 or 6 year old. And then like the Ultimate Warrior was the same thing. I just thought it was the
yeah.
coolest thing. It was just a whirlwind of colors and energy, and like I don't know which 6 year old you could show that to and they wouldn't think that's cool even today. But then as I got a little bit older and I started to pay a bit more attention to the matches, Bret Hart became my hero. And especially being a Canadian kid, I feel like there was a sort of a representative of sorts for us in that respect. So um, I was a huge Bret Hart fan. I mean, I still am. And I
Right.
pretty different level now as someone who's been in the game all these years. I think that's the true mark of the greats is like they evolve with you. Like you
Mhm.
take them on one level when you first discover them, and the older you get, their work or their art or whatever you want to call it is still relevant to you, but in a new light. That
Mhm.
to me, that's kind of the mark of greatness. But that's a different conversation. Um, so yeah, Bret Hart, and then as I was becoming a teenager, and the Attitude Era really started becoming a big deal. Mick Foley was a favorite of mine.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and he
Yes.
still is, and in a different light now. Again, as someone who I guess could call him a peer, uh, I have a newfound appreciation for him as well. And
Mhm.
then the Hardys really, I think, tipped the scales. That was the final piece where it
Mhm.
was. I was right at that age where training to become a wrestler seemed like an actual possibility. And seeing that these were two, somewhat undersized guys for the time,
Mhm.
started in their backyard the way I was wrestling with my friends in my backyard. It
Right.
just all seemed like, it's right there.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I would say those are the five guys that were probably the biggest influences on me. I'd say Hogan, and then Bret Hart, and then Mick Foley, and then the Hardy Boys.
Got it. Yeah, it's intriguing that you said Mick Foley was one of your influences as well, one of your favorite wrestlers. But I gotta ask, since you mentioned that, why didn't you ask him for help during your match against Johnny Knoxville? I think that would have been that would have been a little bit more helpful in your favor, man. Because that was one of my favorite time matches, at WrestleMania that you had when it came down to it. In your perspective,
It's
uh,
one of my ever too, actually.
yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, what favorite match that you have under your card or under your belt that you look back on and say, hey, this was amazing, under for your career. And you're not allowed to say anything regarding to Kevin Owens because,
Well, I'm very lucky. I've had a really good career. I think I'm very proud of it. I'm very pleased with it. And I've had a lot of really great matches that I'm really proud of. The Knoxville one jumps out at me because, um, for so many reasons, I think,
right.
for starters, expectations were low. And anytime you can take people on that kind of ride when they're not really expecting to be taken on that kind of ride,
Right.
I mean, to me, that's all wrestling really is. It's like a ride, an emotional ride, a ride of different reactions, and it's going left and it turns right, and it's up and it's down, and the next thing you know, you're just caught up in it. It's a great feeling to be caught up in it. And I think that's the remarkable thing that we were able to do in that match is just get people completely caught up in what we were doing.
Mhm.
And particularly proud of it because Johnny Knox was not a wrestler.
Right.
And he went out there and, like, to his credit, as much as I don't like to give him credit for any, he went out there at age 50 and put 20 minutes in at WrestleMania and had people on their feet. Like,
Amazing.
there's people on earth that can do that, and he was part of that. So very proud of that match. But then there's also matches with guys like Neville, who now wrestles in AEW, as Pac, or Cesaro, who now wrestles in AEW as Claudio Castagnoli. Again, Kevin Owens. I know you say he's not. I'm not allowed to mention him, but stuff we did with the Bloodline, the match with Roman Reigns at Elimination Chamber, just
Mhm. Yes.
uh, like I've had a lot of really not only great matches, but I've been able to tell a lot of great stories throughout my career. So I'm very, I don't know, I feel very lucky for sure. A lot
I'm
of people
surprised
have,
you. I'm surprised you didn't mention this year's WrestleMania, the Intercontinental Championship against Gunther. Like that
Yeah.
almost
that's
brought
up
tears to my ears, man.
the tag. I mean, I feel like my last three WrestleManias, if anybody got one of them, they'd be like, all right, see you tomorrow. Like that's it. They're ready to retire. I had that one with Gunther. That was great. I had the one before where we main evented and won the tag team titles. That was an
Mhm.
unbelievable. Before that was the Knoxville match. So those last three WrestleManias, I mean, man, God, if I, how lucky am I? I don't know. Really pleased.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We definitely appreciate you taking the time out today to join us today, to explain your journey and also help us promote WWE Raw when they come to Charlotte, North Carolina at the Spectrum Center Monday, February 17th. Is there anything that you want to say to the fans, upon your arrival to Charlotte?
Well, just thanks for always supporting us. I personally, again, I'm not just blowing smoke here. I really do enjoy coming to Charlotte. Specifically, it's one of my preferred towns when I see it on our calendars. So anytime we come, especially for TV, especially for Raw, the energy is always up. I think the energy is going to be even higher than ever now, right off the heels of debuting on Netflix. I think it's really going to be a game changer. So I feel like the energy in Charlotte on the 17th there in February is going to be a little different from any of the other Raws we've done. And those were already very high energy. So I'm assuming that this will, it's hard to even imagine, but I'm sure it's going to be an incredible time.
Perfect, perfect. Well, Sylvia, you have anything you want to say?
No,
I just want to say thank you for taking the time to chat with us. I'm big fan of yours, and continue doing what you're doing. And I'm excited for this upcoming storyline with the Usos and the whole line. Yes.
So much. Appreciate the kind words.
Absolutely, absolutely.